welcome to Cable's YouTube channel. And today we want to start a new series of videos that we want to show, where we not explain like ops or like patterns in cables, but we want to show real life projects or stuff that is used outside of cables. So finished products, for example, or finished websites and microsites or art installations or whatever. If you have any ideas or anything you wanna see in here, just write us. Yeah, so this is the first time, and now, today we want to show you a little microsite that we did at Andev. Especially Eduardo and Stefan did this, and I only did some small performance fixing. And yeah, it launched on Wednesday, this Wednesday, the website, and you can find the URL below. And yeah, let's start talking about it. So this is the site. Maybe you guys can guide us through or tell us something about it.
Yeah, basically we created this one-pager site for Massive Music. They have like a new product that's called MassiveBass, for which they surveyed like 500,000 people to then find out some archetypes and brand values that then are being used to find out the sound that fits to your brand. To pitch this this product, we created this microsite and had a small experience to visually work with what they have in sound. So what you see here is like the loading screen. It loads, and then you arrive at a selection where you can select your archetypes. And yes, of course, it's best enjoyed with headphones and music.
Yeah, so right now you cannot yet, but yeah, please go to the site and experience the music there.
So we created these figures that represent the archetypes, and the whole idea is like once you click on an archetype, you then jump into a custom environment for every archetype, and on the lower left you can select like the brand values that then play the sound that is connected to this combination.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can go to another environment and it will be completely different?
Yeah, every environment has like different colors, obviously, different effects, and all the 3 different distinct sounds that then interact with also the effects in the environment that you have. They might be more exaggerated or not.
Okay. Yeah, so how was the project? So the client came and said, like, we have those 12 archetypes, please visualize them, or?
Yeah, kind of like that. We were working for a kids creative agency, and they came around and said like, hey, you guys have like basically 2 weeks to do something with this. And the initial briefing, I think Eduardo can tell something about.
Yeah, the initial briefing was pretty much, yeah, they like the idea of having this running character in different environments, where Stefan said each archetype would be represented there, and each environment would change differently according to the archetype. So exactly. So one of the challenges for me was, yeah, I guess, pretty much different things, but the first thing that I needed to figure out was, okay, how does this character look like? Because the client briefed us that he wanted for sure have a character that it looks like glass, and we didn't have a glass shader in cables, so I had to kind of do this by myself, and exactly. So So he briefed that and said, okay, we have a couple of words to describe some attributes that we can have as an influence on how to dictate how the environments look like. So don't remember exactly which one is what, but they gave us words like, okay, one is edgy and it's playing maybe with some cubes, and the other one should look a bit more organic. So we have more smooth and organic looking shapes, and the other one should be something that relates to nature. So it was pretty much open for us to interpret that as how we thought it would be fitting to the project. And from a visual standpoint, they had a completely different idea on what would be this environment in the terms of colors and text, not colors but textures. They wanted to play somehow with textures, and I kind of found this visual different direction along the way, where I wanted to almost make a very minimalistic background where you have just a slightly tone difference between the floor and I don't know, a horizon and some element there, which we proposed, and they actually really enjoyed it somehow. But yeah, that was the briefing. Like, we have those 12 archetypes. They need to be somehow rendered in a glass look, and we need to come up with at least 12. No, we said, like, how many environments we created in total. I think was, let me think quickly, 1, 2, 3. I think like we created 8 or 9 different environments, because within the time was also part of the challenge. Like, okay, how can I find this middle point of having 2 weeks to model something and then animate and then create the logic in cables, plus materials, plus how can I generate environments that are not relying on me having to model something. So I came up with the solution of depending on the environment, we are different solutions, but mainly we're playing just with displacements and a rectangle where I put different textures in it. And
let's go into the patch, and then we can also look at this stuff. I'm interested in the glass shader. And you said like the timing was an issue, or was a challenge?
Yeah, it was a challenge just because of the sheer amount of things that we had to create, and we weren't sure yet how close would be something to what they wanted. So one solution that I had, which is great by having cable, is that I could expose a lot of things on a sidebar for them to tweak different looks and colors themselves.
Yeah, let's open the sidebar.
It is basically what we did. So we didn't have like enough time to actually nail it and have like big feedback rounds. So we took small steps and just export variables on a sidebar, and then let the agency and the kids basically play with it. And they actually then sent back screenshots and said like, okay, we like this, please implement that.
Yeah, so what you see here, this is the sidebar. It's like a huge part of the project. So that was really an important thing. So this is how we work often with Undev. We create a new prototype like every day and send this to the client, and then the client can try this out, for example, and like see difference in the patch and say like, this is good, or this is the right direction, or this has to be more soft or more harsh, and then we do the feedback rounds with this input, and the client can also adjust stuff on their own and discuss it without us being in the loop.
And also without us doing, I don't know, deployments all the time and having it a bit more red and then checking, oh no, this is still not there.
Yeah.
So this saves a lot of time actually.
Yeah, so actually they sent us screenshots of the values, or they're saying like, yeah, change the tint to 12 or something. And then we can make those adjustments together, more or less.
Yeah. But we were lucky enough from the glass shader part that they were super happy right ahead with it, and they changed slightly some things. And yeah, so in this
I want to show this, like the glass shader is so cool to adjust. So wait.
Now this is the icons part. Yeah, so I divided the glass shader in two themes, kind of. So reflection and refraction. And there are some things, Tom, which takes more effect on the second stage of when you're running there.
Okay.
I think IOR and tint maybe can be more visualized. Maybe IOR, unless you have something behind the character, it's hard to have a difference. Yeah, as you can
already overdid it.
yeah, as you can see, not just changing every time gets you a beautiful result, but yeah, under those two themes of like, okay, how much reflection do I want, and how this highlights on the glass looks like? Do I want it harsher? Do I want it more soft? Do I want some dispersion and like a chromatic aberration dispersion? Do I want a tint as well? Because this also was a bit of a part of the challenge. They weren't sure in the beginning. I think when they briefed us, they're like, okay, we want to bring the colors of the archetypes in the overview somehow. So I had to build options, for example, where in the overview the characters are, each one has a different color, or an option where they would be transparent, like you would expect to glass, so no tinting or anything, but then you would put background colors on the background somehow. But yeah, again, a lot of things were exposed that was easy for us to really generate different looks until we were happy. And I proposed something that I was happy with, and yeah, luckily they took it.
Yeah.
Also, maybe interesting. Oh, sorry.
Right, so you're rendering it like the glass stuff in two passes, like one for the front and one for the backside, or then it's in the post-processing, it's combined.
Yeah, exactly. So
is it in here? Can I see some textures? No.
You can neutral archetypes. Yeah, you can see some textures there. Good question. Now.
Yeah. So this is the version without any post-processing. So the chromatic aberration is in the post-processing.
Yeah, so this is the base of, so pretty much what I needed to do was, so we use something in cables that we call matcaps, right? It's one type of material that you can, out of an image, get some pretty cool looks. So there is I think, Tom, there is a matcap. You can look at the matcap, actually. Sorry, you're looking at the render to texture. Inside the neutral archetypes, you have also the matcap generator. So pretty much, besides what's being done on the post-processing, you have also like a bit of those effects being applied to the matcap. But maybe just try to find a matcap. Yeah, exactly. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so funny. So this is the base of the material. So pretty much, if I removed all the blend modes effect, like this would be just exactly like this texture. There would be just a black character with some white highlights, pretty much. And then I was using something which is called a blend mode to add. So all the black would be just removed, and you would just see highlights. So that was the first step for me to like, okay, how can I make something that has highlights and it's transparent, pretty much. And then in post-processing, I was doing things like, okay, now that if I look through the character, I made a selection, like a silhouette selection, so I could affect only in the whatever being view. How to say, whatever being viewed through the character. So I could say, okay, whatever I have there behind the character can be blurred when he's on front. What else? Yeah, and then different things like again, the chromatic aberration to have a little bit of RGB shift on the edges, and then a little bit of tint as well, because at some point they said, okay, maybe everything is a bit too transparent. So I said, okay, here we can have a slider that you can make the glass a bit darker as well, and so things like this.
Right.
Yeah, and so lucky wise, we were already since the beginning of the project with the glass things in a good direction. Like that was the first time that I did this. And it was pretty fun. Was really I really enjoyed, and for me I was a bit afraid that performance would be an issue somehow, and in the end, yeah, the glass shader stuff was running very fast, even though I'm abusing a bit on the post-processing of how much effects I was using. But yeah, everything was very, very fast somehow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe it's my lack of knowledge. I always had a feeling of like, oh man, to create a glass shader from scratch in using simply post-processing in cables, if that would be an issue. But yeah, it was really cool. So I was.
And I mean, they created a video out of this just fine. So yeah.
Yeah.
But this may be also interesting. Like if you press in this version, I think if you click on the patch and then press H, you can basically hide all the UI elements which they then used for recording. And I think you can navigate using your arrows. Arrow keys
down to go back and forward, and then when you're in the overview, you can use left and right arrows. But to
so
select,
they can record a video. Basically.
Yeah, exactly. Because this is something that sometimes clients ask a lot, like because it's possible to do that in cables. That we can hide things around so they can record things for social media afterwards, or a video case or something about the project.
Yeah, great. And maybe let's talk a bit about the different environments. Like, so I guess you created methods so they can all work the same, more or less, right?
Yeah, I think the only one that it's not working in this method would be the nature one, which I mean was a bit hard to just say, hey, how can I use a texture and a rectangle that texture that displays a rectangle, like I'm doing this one, for example, to create those little mountains. And besides we also have some spheres flying, but
let's see those textures. Where can I find them?
But the nature one was the only one that I needed to model something and bring a model in, because I needed a tree and I don't know, rocks in the floor or something like this. Is this the one that it's being triggered? Yeah, that's the one, organic. Yeah.
This is already the texture for the floor.
I mean, I think it might have, I don't know if this one has 2 images composes, but mainly it's always something like this, which is generating the displacement on the floor.
Cool.
So I'm pretty much using noises, black and white colors to say, okay, push this up and then push this down, and I was using that as the main thing, because it was easy to iterate and to scale up and to have different looks already. So I think this was a good decision.
In this one, you can clearly see the path that's been generated, right? So you got the left and rights with the displacement, and in the middle it's just black. Yeah.
Cool. So, and in the end, it's just like basically a basic material and some color areas for the darker shades, and then a vertex displacement op. And a simple rectangle, and and then just extrude those vertices.
Yeah, pretty much that. Yeah.
Oops. Shouldn't have clicked that. Yeah, great. Yeah, really cool. What else can we talk about? What else? What was another challenge, or like?
Yeah, I think for me was also like using bones. So doing some character animation, which also can be sometimes, depending if I wanted to say, hey, I want to have 10 characters next to each other, and like this was something that I had to put some thought into. Okay, what is the decision there on how to bring a bit of randomness to the movement, and how to have because for me it's pretty important to have always cool seamless transitions, which you can notice with the camera and things popping out of the floor, and the characters like spacing away and the camera rotating. So, but I guess one of the problems for me in the not problems, but just something I worried until I tried and saw that was okay, was like, okay, how can I solve this? Because I cannot have like different animations, like 10, I don't know how many archetypes we had, Stefan? 12?
12, yeah.
So I cannot have like 12 different animations. So of a guy being in some sort of standing idle mode, and then 10 different animations of running. So I was like, okay, how can I still bring some variance and randomness to it, and still not, I don't know, making performance intensive. So, but yeah, without getting technical, like, this is just using one. So when you see in the overview, if you go back, like, a bit, just to the overview. So you see that they all, they do the same movement, but I just offsetted the timing of the standing somehow. So this one would already bring a bit of randomness to it and some variance. And so once this was good and working, I was quite happy with it. And another issue which you helped me, Tom, was the fact that I needed to put them, I needed 12 of them in a circle, but having always this view of, I don't know how much we have there, like 6. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, so we only calculate the animations and render the animations of the archetypes that are visible on the screen, right?
So you help me with this, because otherwise, even though you're seeing only 7 at a time or 6, you had the other archetypes behind the camera pretty much still rendering. And you helped me with a solution for that, which was great. That helps to optimize performance, because this also needed to run in mobile. And of course, when we do something in cables, we want to be everywhere as possible, 60 FPS or something, so it doesn't get sluggish in the device. Or so this was also solved. Yeah, this is a cool background as well.
Yeah.
Like,
Is
so
this a bend? Is this a bending mesh?
Yeah, so this was another extra thing that I added to this one, which is, again, is just a texture on a rectangle displacing, but then I added a bend to go from a tubular view to a flat view to different layouts. Yeah, which I think it worked quite cool as well.
Yeah, and this is a depth texture. No, this is probably also a color area, right?
Yeah, so this kind of, I think the method that I chose to color everything was a bit I don't know, was a bit trial and error in the beginning. I was using fog and different things to like tint, but then in the end I was like, okay, if I'm gonna do, if the environments will stay color-wise simple, so I'm just playing with offsets of the tones of the color, I decided pretty much to use color areas to dictate where I wanted something to get darker and where I wanted something to fade away.
Yeah.
In the nature one, for example, I had different objects, so I had to come up with a decision on how to color those as well. And color areas were great for what I needed as well, because I needed to. There was some sort of issue, I think, with my workflow that I couldn't just like say, okay, make something opaque right now. Like, I had an issue somehow with the workflow that I created, that I couldn't just make something transparent and say, okay, go away. So then I was using color areas to engulf objects in the background color, pretty much, when I needed to make them disappear. So this helped as well to make all.
Yeah, I think it looks great. I mean, it has this foggy feeling, but you have way more control than with the fog, I think, with the color areas.
Yeah, exactly. So that for me was like more fine grain control on what I want to tint and where and how. Especially because you have directions and you have spherical areas that you can color something. You can color something in the z-axis, and so yeah, this was great. Yeah.
Cool. And something that we get a lot of questions from users is like, how can I create like a UI or something? So, Stefan, you want to talk about this a bit?
Yeah, also with the challenge of doing this in 2 weeks, we kind of try to separate this as much as possible. So Eduardo could work on the 3D rendering part, and I took the challenge of creating this UI. This is like, all of it is in HTML and also in cables. And some of the challenges were, of course, they're all of the responsiveness of this whole thing to be working on mobile. But as you see here, for example, on the left side, like we have static text, right? So all the text that is on the next screen actually changes by triggers or variables that are being set by Eduardo's part of the rendering, and then I'm setting CSS variables to exchange texts in the buttons, for example. So this way, I was able to actually do a lot of this
Those
in
buttons.
yeah, these buttons, right? So these are always the same buttons, but from the 3D rendering part, I get a state, and then I know which text to put in for what archetype. Also, like where it says caregiver now. This is all driven by CSS variables, and by doing this, actually, I was able to do most of this stuff completely outside of cables. Like all the testing and development of the UI was done in Visual Studio Code and then put into this massive text elements, diff elements. If you edit the content or look into the content of one of those, for example, yeah. This actually contains then like a whole snippet of HTML that we're then using and rendering.
Okay.
And if you look into the CSS,
so you were like, you didn't want to patch the whole HTML structure, so you would have like 100 diff elements. You really just have like one container diff element and put like from external.
I mean, these are labeled somehow. So these basically are just like small snippets that are then placed by CSS, and the contents in there, like the actual text and stuff like this, are then controlled by CSS variables from the patch.
Mm-hmm.
This allowed Eduardo and to work on the patch while I was working on the UI, and then I just had to like drop it all in there, and that worked in a day or something like this, right? So not lots of integration work, and also less ops.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that was interesting is that also the if you go to the overview room again, all of these names and like caregiver, caring, for example, small challenge, but also really great. These are also diffs, so they are rendered in 2D and being actual text. So we used the browser rendering to have like smoother, sharper fonts there, but we wanted to attach them to the shins of these characters, and yeah, we basically created this using the what's it called, transform element op, and this way you can like pin the position of a 2D diff element overlaying to a 3D position, and that worked really great this way.
Yeah. Yeah. Before the text was rotating with which would be possible as well right now, but before they were rotating with the characters, and
yeah, great. Awesome project, and really love the result.
Absolutely, it was a fun 2 weeks.
Sorry.
You go.
Do you want to show the particles maybe? Also, you can play a bit just to show that you can configure it somehow. This was also mainly a challenge. Like they wanted for the intro, this idea of like some flocking behavior for particles, and they wanted really for you to push the particles with the mouse somehow, or have the particles following the mouse. And so this was also something that was a challenge to, I guess, do it. And so also the same way we did with the glass shader, we exposed some parameters for them so they could use find the right values that they would be happy with it. But yeah, was quite flexible. Maybe you can and then you go on particles. So the maybe show more the behavior, because there is no particle texture anymore there. But yeah, they could increase the size, and they could set some randomness to the size of the particles. They could change the colors. They could randomize the colors as well somehow.
There's attractor force, for example, and attractor size.
Yeah. So they could choose, like, I want to push the particles away. No, I want to suck the particles in with the mouse, and yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So positive is pushing away. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Great. Yeah, I think that's the main things to say about this project, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fun 2 weeks. Thanks for the kids for this project. That was really cool.
Yeah,
No.
we had a lot of fun working on this, and yeah, it was a good challenge. It was one of the good ones.
Yeah, great. Okay. So, yeah, if there are any questions, let us know. Let us know how you like this, and if we should go more into detail, or what parts of a real world project are interesting to you. Is it more the patching, or is it more the, I don't know, the workflow, the technical side, whatever? Let us know, and yeah, we will try to do this more often now. And if you have any projects that you want to see and that you want to have an insight, just let us know. But we will continue this. Okay.
Cool.
I think that's it then.
Thank you. Bye.
Cool. Thank you, guys. Bye.